On everybody, this is Carlo with Four Guys Recorders with a very special interview today. We have David Housden, who is a musical composer and has worked on various video games as well as different industry stuff. And I apologize in advance. For some reason, my camera is not working, so that's why you see my avatar on screen. But everybody else has a camera today, so I feel kind of left out, and I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody in the chat. Um, but on the panel with me is Flamish and Dreadpool and Mav, and Midway may join in later. But I want to go to our special guest, David, and introduce him. He seems like a very talented, amazing guy, and I want to thank him for coming on the show. It's definitely appreciated. David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Of course, man. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm a composer for games primarily, but I also work in film and other media too. Been working for about 8 years now. Probably best known for a game called Thomas Was Alone, which came out in 2012, I believe. It was actually my first game out of uni, so I got extremely lucky with that one. And yeah, since then I've been, fortunate enough to work with Sony, Microsoft, most recently Rare on the Battletoads remake, which was amazing. And yeah, we've got some really exciting stuff coming up as well. So yeah, thanks again for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we appreciate you being here. And when you said that you got some other stuff coming out, that gets us excited. And I don't know if that's something that we can ask you about, or we just gotta wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask, but I'm not allowed to say too much, unfortunately. But no, really, really exciting projects, and I'll probably be able to, start talking about them hopefully quite soon next year. So watch this space, I guess.
Okay, sounds interesting. Usually
Sorry,
Dreadpool
super
tries
vague
to
answer.
start thinking about what might that be. Um,
Say it again, sorry, man.
no, Dreadpool on the panel, he usually
Oh, sorry.
tries to think ahead and come up with ideas what it could be. He's
He did
done
prep
that.
me for
He did, yeah.
that.
Yeah, we forewarned them. So we already told them that we are under NDA right along with him. AJ said it's okay to tell us because we are part of it. I'm going to be doing some voiceover work for him.
Oh, there we go. Oh, if
I,
AJ said it's
I,
fine, then yeah.
yeah. You see, I can only wish that it was true.
Nice. So David, I know that you also mentioned, I know, like you did Battletoads recently. I also saw, like, I think it's called, if I say correctly, forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but The Lost Word Beyond Pages.
Lost Words Beyond the Page. Yeah, that's right, man. Yeah, very different game.
Yeah, I mean that actually looks really cool. Like the from what I've seen so far, the screen captures of it, or like the screenshots, it looks very interesting. It looks like a pretty cool adventure. How recent was that project for you?
Yeah, I mean, they're both fairly recent. We wrapped on them both this year, although that one was a little bit of a strange one in as much as I actually recorded the music last year in Nashville. So I was like super ahead of the curve, sort of for once in my life. But the game sort of underwent quite a lot of changes within the last year of development. So there was a lot of additional work that I needed to do after the music had been recorded in terms of actually getting it to work in game to the fullest and to create the experience for the player that we really wanted to. So yeah, but no, so yeah, they're both pretty recent. Lost Words released in March of this year, and then Battletoads was, I believe, it came out in August in the end.
Okay, yeah, so that is pretty recent.
Mm.
Um, I know that I know when I looked at your webpage as well. You also do various different projects for um, I want to say the movie, TV, film industry.
Yeah, signed to a few. I don't do as much library work as I used to now, to be honest, because I mainly get hired to do bespoke kind of commissions for games or short films and so on and so forth. But I did when I was sort of initially starting out. I did quite a lot of library works and I was signed to a few publishers to do kind of TV spot placement, ad work, trailer syncs, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was cool. It's always nice to work on different things and keeps life interesting.
Is there a big difference between working for, let's say, like a film studio or a project for a film versus a video game company?
Um, yeah, no, I would say so. Quite fundamental differences, but also kind of the crux is the same. All I'm ever really trying to do is find a way to capture the subtext of the story, capture the kind of emotions that the developers or filmmakers want the audience to be feeling at any given time. So that part of my job really doesn't change at all, depending on what I'm working on. But the method that you kind of go about that is completely different. Obviously, film is linear format. You know exactly what the audience is going to hear at any given time. So there's a predictability which comes with that, and you can kind of express yourself in, you can get your intention across in exactly the way that you want to. Whereas with games, you have to look at things more, um, well, differently, because the player can do any number of things that you have zero control over whatsoever. So you have to try and do your best to mitigate for that and still create an experience for them along the lines of your intention. But it's a lot harder to do that. So there's various skills and techniques and tools and technologies that we use to try to create what will feel from the player's perspective to be kind of a bespoke crafted score, just for their experience, but it needs to be all things for all people at the same time.
So, layman's terms, is this when you do something with the soundtrack, you're talking about how you shift the sound and the let's say you go into a creepier section and you get it to all of a sudden shift over seamlessly into eeriness.
Absolutely that, man. Yeah, it has to,
Perfect.
it all has to happen in real time, and it all has to be able to respond. um if the player goes in the creepy direction, then the score needs to adapt to that equally. If it goes in the, I don't know, let's say romantic direction, then you can't start having metallic scraping and screams in the background. So
Right. But you see, and that's what always interested me. It's always fascinating how you can shift. You're in the area, and as you shift over into the next area, it just seamlessly. It's like, how do you know to shift it from this type of music into this other type of music? Like you said, creepy or romantic or adventure or something to give you a cue of something's next to come. This is
mm,
an important area.
yeah, it's something that comes with experience and practice, but a lot of it is instinctual. Like I'm a gamer. I always have been. I've been playing games since a kid. It's my biggest passion in life. Other than music, they've pretty much been the two constants that I've never got bored of or given up of at any point. It's been always been music and games. So I have a fundamental understanding of the medium, and I spend a lot of time playing the game when I'm working on it, so that I know how things are working, if my intention is being expressed in the way that I want it to be. And it's very quick and easy to find out if something's not working properly, as long as you're actually kind of testing your work, and you know what the vision and the direction that the guys making the game want to go in. As long as you have like a good understanding of that, and you're all kind of reading from the same page, then it's not easy, but you get there.
Do you visually see the composition as you create it, and you're discussing it with the directors or whoever else is involved in this? Do
Yeah,
you
I
see it?
usually. Sorry, go on, man.
I was gonna say, do you visually see it as you talk, and then just like it's already there in your mind, and you just lay it down?
Mm, I wish it was that like that. To be honest, it would save me a lot of time. I normally have to spend a lot. I spend a lot of time at the start of every project, really going to town on the kind of research, looking at references for kind of other sounds and scores that they like, and then kind of thinking about how I can absorb that and give them a fresh like a unique representation of that with my voice, to create something new for their game. I normally try to, like when I write something for a new game project, I like it to have an identity, and I would ideally try to write something that you could hear like the first kind of 10-20 seconds of and be like, oh, that's the music for such and such. I'm not saying that I always achieve that, but that is 100% always the kind of end goal.
Now, when you write it down, do is there any particular instrument? Because I know usually everybody does like the piano thing where they just type out the tunes and try to figure out the rhythms and all that. Is that something that you do too? Do you do something like electronic or?
No, it's probably 9 times out of 10 piano, but I'm actually a guitarist by trade. That was my musical background. That's how I got started and everything. I played guitar in bands. Sometimes I find it a lot more natural and intuitive to write on guitar than I do for piano, because I've had to teach myself kind of piano to do my job effectively. But I'm not a pianist, and I wouldn't fancy kind of playing piano in front of people ever. So it's nice to kind of like write on something that you're comfortable with, and also different ideas come out that way. If you write on one thing all the time, through muscle memory, you find you start kind of sticking to the same keys and patterns and stuff. So I think it's always good to mix it up and change the process, change the outcome, as they say.
Okay.
Now,
go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna ask one thing that from talking to different musical composers is that when they write their music for different projects, sometimes like especially with video games or movies, they try to bring out like an emotional feeling. Like if you're going into Doom and you're just about to kill a bunch of baddies, you want like that kind of like rock star like pumped up feeling. And then if you're in a game where something like kind of sad or dramatic's happening, you get that kind of like dramatic music a little bit to kind of touch your emotions, maybe like think like Life is Strange and stuff like that. So
Oh, I love
do you,
that. Yeah.
do you do the same thing with your music? Do you kind of get a feel for the game or the story and then try to put the emotions in the music for the characters?
Yeah, I mean, you've literally just described my job there, man. 100%. That is to me what the job is. We're trying to express the unspoken, if you will. We're there to kind of craft the player's emotional journey for them alongside the narrative, and we're obviously playing a supporting role to the visuals and the narrative and the storyline and stuff. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, it's 100% my job to reinforce that and to make sure the player is kind of feeling what we want them to be feeling at any given time, be that adrenaline for kicking the shit out of hellspawn demons, or if it's kind of grief and loss at a close friend passing away or something. It's that's always the end goal. Definitely. How you achieve that is obviously markedly different. In Battletoads, we had kind of 80s hair metal for a lot of it to kind of tie into the I guess the early roots. It came out kind of late 80s, early 90s initially, and it was very clear what the direction that David Wise was trying to emulate with the technology that he had available to him at the time. It was very clearly kind of a chiptune version of a heavy rock band. So obviously we don't have those limitations now, thankfully. So we just went out and recorded it. How I'm sure he would have liked to back in the day. And then if you compare that to Lost Words, which is a kind of really intimate, emotional journey based within the pages of a young girl's diary who's dealing with the sort of loss of her grandmother and stuff, then that couldn't be more different. And there we went for a more sort of orchestral, kind of traditional sound to try and capture the rawness of what she was experiencing. So they're two very extreme examples, but there's a whole ton of grey area in between. But you nailed it, really.
I'm sorry, Jared. I was just gonna say real quick in the chat. David Michael Garvey played Thomas. Thomas was alone with his son Nick, and he watched him play the whole game, and he says that it was a great memory for them both. So he thanks you.
Oh wow, that's awesome, man! Thank you very much. I love hearing that kind of stuff.
Okay. I was gonna say you're talking about the your humble beginnings in the bands. And obviously it helped you out with the Battletoads and figuring out the rock part of the 80s rock, that we talked about. Now, how much of that, other than Battletoads, do you feel that it it still benefited you, even though you were in a different type of band, a different type of field, musically, and to be able to get that for the developers, like what they're looking for?
No, you're spot on, man. It definitely did help. Probably it's a bit difficult to point at how it has directly transitioned because they are such different worlds. I was in a pop punk garage band, and we writing sort of bad Blink-182 ripoffs for most of the time. So how you go from that to sort of writing for full orchestra and recording with some of the finest players in the world is obviously couldn't be further apart. But at the same time, I think a lot of the sensibilities that I took from songwriting in the back, in terms of like crafting an arrangement and a piece of music, I think there was definitely a hell of a lot of crossover. And to this day, I feel like a lot of my writing, even if my palette changes from a 4-piece band with 3 of my best friends to a 60-piece orchestra, like I feel like I still write kind of short, snappy, catchy numbers, which is all from that. It's ingrained in me, and I always want to hear singles. I want to hear the bangers. I don't like writing filler or background music, even though a lot of the job is kind of doing underscore and stuff. Like I always try and make sure that I'm saying something or doing something of musical interest for the listener, even if they don't kind of consciously pay attention to it whilst they're playing. I want to make sure that they're always listening to what I consider to be really cool. So I think there's definitely, you can definitely look back and say there are things which have helped and come through, but I've had to learn a lot as well.
So yeah, definitely hooks are a key thing when it comes to a lot of music. If you
Oh,
don't have that
absolutely.
hook, you don't get it. So
No, too right.
So you obviously answered my other question, because I was going to ask you what type of band. So you said punk.
Oh, right.
And,
Yeah. No, pop punk kind of specifically. So yeah, more
okay.
like the old drive-through records bands of the early 2000s and stuff that you'd hear on the American Pie soundtrack rather than like the Clash or the Sex Pistols.
Okay. It's always good to find out. And you were the guitarist for all the bands that you were on.
Yeah. I've always played guitar. I actually started out playing drums. That was my first instrument, but I kind of stopped that when I was about 14 years old, and picked up the guitar when I think it was the first time I heard Limp Bizkit, actually. Just got massively into new metal and rock, and bought myself an Ibanez to try and copy Wes Borland, and from then on just fell in love with it.
Yeah, Wes was the man back then, huh?
It's
Still is, though. You know what I mean.
No, totally, man. Yeah.
Mav, you got
Hey,
anything? How's it going?
I am late. Sorry, I was dealing with holiday traffic. It is nice to meet you, David. How's it going?
Oh, nice to meet you too, man. No worries. Yeah, really good, thanks.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you actually, you guys may have covered this, which is always awkward being late, but do you have a favorite piece that you actually wrote for a video game? Like, what's your favorite?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I don't know, man. I never want to listen to anything that I've done after
Yeah.
I've finished it, because I've just sat with it for listening to it on repeat for 100 times. But yeah, it's difficult to. I think normally after a year or two, I can kind of go back with fresh ears and listen to it with renewed perspective and have an appreciation for what I did. But normally I hate listening back to
Yeah.
myself.
So is there somebody else's work that you admire that is doing composing for video games that we may be familiar with?
Yeah. One of my favorite composers and a really good friend is a guy called Chris Tadulu. He did the music for Risk of Rain, his famous roguelike, which did very well on Steam. His stuff's really great. Gareth Coker is another really good friend of mine. He does the music for Ori and the Blind Forest, and more recently Will of the Wisps. And I think they're two of my kind of favorite scores of the last 5 to 10 years, really. Actually, really beautiful stuff there. So there's loads of people doing like really good work at the moment. To go back to your original question, I think probably enough time has passed for me to talk about Thomas Was Alone. So yeah, my favorite piece on that is a piece of music called Freedom, which is the last track that you actually hear in the game.
Freedom.
But it was just it kind of encompassed everything that you experience in the journey along the way, and I was just very proud of it at the time, because it was I think objectively for me, I knew that it was the kind of best piece that I'd written because of what went into it. It was more work than I'd ever put into a piece of music before, and definitely in terms of track count in my Logic session, it had more layers than I'd ever really used before. So yeah, I'd probably say that one for fondness and nostalgia.
Okay.
How much of a factor do you feel like the music actually plays into the user experience? You know, because what I find is it can dramatically change, even if you're making something as simple as a YouTube video. It can completely change the feel of what you're watching, right? And also what you're playing. And do you find that like that's a core experience element that is crucial to kind of nail right for that game to kind of meet the standards of what people are hoping for?
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously probably got a slight bias here, but I would say that the audio experience in any form of visual media is probably responsible for about, I'd say, a third of the end user experience. You know, if you ever want to kind of gain an appreciation for, you know, what the audio does for things like try watching a horror movie with kind of mute on, because you won't be aware of it, but it completely saps all of the tension out of a scene. And yeah, I think, you know, maybe it's like a little bit of a thankless task, because there's the old adage that if we do our job really well, then you don't really notice we're there. I don't 100% agree with that, because I think you can still do really great work and kind of have moments where the music does come to the forefront, and it's not just there to kind of set tone and so on and so forth. But yeah, you know, fundamentally, I guess it is something that, you know, maybe washes over people, and you might kind of the audience may occasionally take it for granted. You often find it in reviews. In fact, there's quite a lot of people being quite vocal about this at the moment, that reviews tend to offer an opinion on almost every facet of a game, but they'll quite often sort of breeze over music and audio, which is a bit weird. You know, even if particularly when they've at the end of a review, you've got, you know, like the itemized sections where there's like a score for visuals, a score for replayability, so on and so forth, and then there's not even a category for like sound of music. Like that's you know, a bit of a shame. But you know, the work I find usually speaks for itself, and you know, so long as you're good at what you do, and you know, try and stay true to the projects, you know, you always find your audience.
Yeah, I think the creators understand the importance of it more than actually the fans that are just playing the games, or the journalists do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah.
Okay, we have a chat question. Back from the Dead asks, do you get gameplay videos, concept art, or scripts describing points in the game to write the music in development?
Yes to all of the above. Like initially, it will be just concept art and scripts, but yeah, they're absolutely fundamental in terms of trying to establish the early tone of the game, I find. And then once development picks up a bit of steam, then yeah, I pretty much exclusively work to videos after that. I find it's the most effective way of doing it. And then yeah, once the music and the demos have gone in the game, then you actually go into kind of playing mode and start testing what you've done. But as far as the writing process goes, then yeah, like videos are, you know, I'd be lost without them.
Yeah. When you think about like you're playing a game and you're listening to the music, do you actually take sometimes inspiration from the music and bring it forth into your games that you create afterwards?
I personally try not to take too much influence from other games, because I just think it's a very easy way to unintentionally end up doing something derivative. What I try to take my influence and inspiration from other media, and ideally not even media, but just like music written for music's sake, rather than music written for another form of visual media. I think that's where I personally find the most inspiration. And yeah, you know, to give you one example, people asked me kind of what my references were for the Thomas Was Alone soundtrack. And I said, at the time, I was actually listening to a load of post-rock music. So, you know, a lot of kind of explosions in the sky. There's a band called Hammock that I absolutely adore. And, you know, this was all of the stuff that I was listening to at the time. And then people were really confused because like, oh, it doesn't sound anything like that. It's like, well, yeah, you know, it was just an influence, you know. Obviously the score is mainly piano and strings and stuff, but like it was listening to those styles of music that kind of inspired me to, you know, write something for a different palette. And like that's how I like things to inspire me. So rather than me going away and listening to that type of music and then coming back and literally writing my own version of a post-rock score, you know, is I always try to find like a unique angle on things. And I think if I listen to too much kind of game music and pay too much attention to what other people are doing at the same time, then it's just too tempting to, you know, try and follow suit. And, just, you know, subconsciously, you know, things do just work their way in to your mind. I remember once I accidentally ripped off the melody to Braveheart for a trailer for a game that I did. I had to find out from the YouTube comments that my melody that I was so proud of was actually the, you know, score for one of the highest grossing films of all time. So, you know, these things can happen if you're not careful.
Okay. And I do have a question because I actually am one of the few probably that don't know Thomas Was Alone. Can you give me a little bit of a background what the game is about, or just a little bit, so because it looks interesting.
Yeah, it's a really minimalist game. It's a 2D platformer, and all of the characters are 2D isometric shapes. So it's very, on a visual level, it's very basic and minimal, but they actually represent facets of computer's AI. So you're kind of playing within, you know, the motherboard of a computer or something. And all of these shapes are conscious and have their own personalities. And there's a really kind of deep narrative written for it. You know, they're all written as people with kind of complex feelings, and they're all going through their own things and stuff. So in terms of the music, it was about kind of capturing a slight sense of technology and stuff to tie it into the environment in which the game was occurring in. But primarily it was really about kind of capturing the essence of the story that the creator was writing, and making sure that those emotions and themes were coming across in the right way. So it was a bit of a weird one. Like it kind of ended up being like chiptune orchestral, which I don't think is a particularly common genre, but it was really good fun.
Okay.
Do you? I know that some creators do it differently, but when you're writing, do you creating a song, do you start with the beat or the melody?
Almost always the melody, I would say, for me personally. That's usually where my ideas come from. Like I'll, you know, be walking along, and I'll hear something, I'll quickly whistle it into my phone, and then go back to the piano and go from there. So yeah, melody, then harmony, chords underneath, and then lastly I'll, you know, start thinking about palette and what sounds and textures I want to use for it. But yeah, that's generally speaking how I do things. I've never tried kind of writing for percussion first before. That'd be quite an interesting experiment if I get writer's block one day.
Yeah. There's some people that swear by that, you know, that you have
yeah, I think it
to
depends
do it
what
that
you're
way.
doing. You know, if you're a producer, or you're writing music for a genre which is kind of inherently percussive or rhythmic in bass, and it makes total sense that you would start there. It kind of just depends what format you're working in.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you also, because I'm thinking like genre, like do you know the game Undertale? And you know that chiptune music.
Yeah.
Do you like that as well? Is that something you would like to do, or?
It's not something that kind of like speaks to me on a creative level. I definitely have an appreciation and admiration for people who are able to do it really well. I think I just probably find it a bit too limiting. And I think that's where a lot of the skill and talent comes in creating effective chiptune music, because it is so limiting. You have to really kind of explore the boundaries of creativity to make something which is still compelling to listen to with such a kind of limited sound set. So yeah, I have like huge respect for Toby Fox and other people who can do that effectively, but I don't really think it's for me. I think Thomas Was Alone is probably as close as I'll ever get, and that was like a sprinkling of chiptune on top of kind of traditional instruments, so it doesn't really count. But it's as close as I've gotten before.
At what point do you get to play the game with your music in it? I mean, is it when it ships, or is it like an ongoing process? You kind of get an early build and get to play around with it a bit, or?
Yeah, I personally try and play the game as much as I possibly can while I'm working on it, man. I do so much trial and error with the music implementation to make sure that it's all working exactly the way that I want it to, and that it's creating the experience for the player that I want it to. So there's tons of iteration as far as that goes. Very rarely, if ever, will I not play the game until it ships. Right. I don't think that's I don't really see how you can do the job effectively without experiencing how everything's working.
Does your stuff go beyond music? I know that Marty O'Donnell, who a lot of us know from Halo, kind of talked about how his job as composer was more than just the songs, right? It was every ounce of sound, anything that had to do with sound, he had his hands on in that game. Is that kind of a normal process for composers, or is that kind of a unique situation? Or
I would say in my personal experience, that's a very unique situation,
right?
Particularly on a property of that size. Like I'm kind of staggered that there wasn't like an audio head of department to oversee like the sound effects and VO and all of that kind of stuff. Super impressive if Marty did have his hand in all things, and if he was the head of audio as well as the lead composer and stuff. But normally there's not enough hours in the day to wear that many hats, so you'll have kind of often how it works on those things is you'll have a music supervisor who briefs and guides the composer creatively, and the composer's job will literally be to create the assets needed, and then the audio team will handle all kind of implementation of the music, as well as all of the sound design, all of the ambiances, all of the VO, so on and so forth. Like your audio department on those type of games would typically be pretty large, to be honest. But I guess it was a long time ago, and he was obviously very he's one of the first people at Bungie and stuff. So he probably had a lot more control than you'd usually get to enjoy as a composer in those positions.
Right. Would you like to do that someday? Like actually just control all of the sound on a video game?
Definitely not.
No.
I'm very happy staying in my lane. Music's what I'm good at, and I like to leave other things to people who are far more talented and intelligent than myself. So.
Right on.
Oh, well, what if the money's right?
I suppose I'd take it and just outsource it to someone else to
do. There you go.
What is like one of the most challenging things that you find about trying to compose something, whether it be for a short film, an actual film, TV, or a video game?
Getting started is always quite daunting and intimidating, I find. Just like when you're staring at that blank canvas and someone's entrusted you to kind of create the sonic identity of their experience, like that's always like a little bit, it's exciting, but it's also a little bit of a weight and a little bit intimidating at the same time. And I think you can quite often spend the first month or so just thinking, oh, God, is this all just complete shit or something? And then it's not until you send it off and then you get to see a little bit of it kind of working in game, and you're like, oh no, actually there is something there, and you can kind of whittle down and you find the direction from there. But I'd say I always find that sort of first month or so fairly difficult. Then you get up and running, and you face other challenges. Whole kind of period of development is just a series of different challenges that you have to overcome. It's kind of difficult to quantify which part of it is actually the hardest. But yeah, for me personally, I'd say the beginning, but that's not to say that it gets easy when you're kind of 1 month away from the end and still having to make tweaks and stuff. So there's all sorts of unique situations and stresses that come to light during game development, but all part of the fun.
Do you ever?
So-
Oh, I'm sorry,
Go
Dre.
ahead. No, go ahead. Follow up.
When you create a composition for one of your projects, do you ever submit multiple versions of, like, let's say, a track that you created to them for them to choose which one they like better?
I'll often give them a choice of tracks to see which one they like better. That's actually quite a good psychological technique. If you give people more than one option for something, they'll feel compelled to choose one of them. Whereas if you just send one, then it can quite often just be a yes or no if it's good enough. So yeah, I do usually try to send multiple tracks, but they will be kind of different pieces rather than slightly tweaked versions of the same thing. Usually I probably wouldn't, I work really hard to make sure that when I do submit something, or when I feel that something is finished, it's as good as I'm possibly capable of making it, without further feedback and guidance, of course. So I wouldn't really like to second guess myself by kind of thinking, well, I wrote it this way, but then I also thought it might sound good this way. Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, it's my job to kind of decide myself for them which is the best version of a piece before I give it to them to listen to. So yeah.
Okay. Born Distracted asks, #question for Dave. Do you find nature sounds to be inspiring? And I'm going to tack on to that one and ask you, what else do you find inspiring when it comes to that?
I'm not sure if I kind of find the sound of nature necessarily inspiring. I do find that being in nature is massively inspiring, but I think it's more from I tend to get more inspired by visual things, and I guess just kind of exercise, like going for a walk in a nice location will quite often trigger really good ideas for me. I find that's something that I can repeatedly fall back to if I'm in a tight spot and struggling to make something work. Go for a walk in the woods or something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't say like I can just sit there and listen to a bird call or the wind through the trees and think of suddenly a fully formed piece comes into my mind. But yeah, it definitely does help, getting out of the studio and, changing surroundings, putting yourself in new places is hugely inspiring. So yeah, I think there definitely is an element of that. As far as like, other things that help, I just think I normally do get genuinely very inspired from reading a script and seeing some art. I will often start to hear ideas and melodies form in my head just from kind of having conversations with people about where they see the game going, like what the main themes are that they want to express. I find that very very inspiring. And then yeah, you just need that first worm of an idea, and then once you've got that, the rest can quite often roll out very quickly from there, or not, as the case can sometimes be. But more often than not, it is quite a fluid process, and it often has to be with the kind of time scales that you have to work to sometimes.
Okay, I'm gonna follow up with another one here. Infinite in the chat. He asks, do you have a pre-recorded music that you have created previously to choose from, or do you always create the music from the project that you're working on?
Really good
like
question.
From scratch, yeah.
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, I do. I have like tons of. I've got like a whole hard drive of just general ideas or stuff which I've tried for another project which maybe wasn't appropriate, but it's still a good piece of music. So yeah, you hang on to that kind of stuff and you hope that it finds its home one day. And when you do get a new project, I will quite often, when you're that is something which can help me get started. If someone's making like quite I don't know, a dark psychological thriller or something, then I can kind of go back through my past ideas and see, okay, well, is there anything that I've written before that kind of expresses a slight sense of tension or unease or something? And then I can, grab one of those and send them off to the developer and say, is this anywhere in the ballpark of kind of the thing that you have in mind? And more often than not, the answer will be no, but it's really helpful in terms of establishing those first conversations, like having a starting point to actually build from, rather than me just literally throwing a dart anywhere and trying to pull something out of thin air. Actually just having something which I can go to and be like, okay, like how's this? What would you like to hear more of? What would you like to hear less of? It can be a really good starting point to build from. So yes is the answer. Like I definitely do that kind of stuff, but typically I will always end up writing like something unique for that game. It's just a way of helping you to get started, really.
Is there any games throughout your history of playing them, whether it be from childhood or let's say like the Mega Drive in the UK or Super Nintendo, all the way to now, that really musically speaks to you or has inspired you, or you're like, oh, I really love the music in this game and I like playing it again or going through it again?
Yeah, definitely. I think Final Fantasy VIII is my all-time, to this day, favorite score. Probably favorite game as well, although I haven't played it in about 15 years, so I don't know how well it will hold up now. But at the time, it had a massive impact on me, and hugely inspiring as well, because I remember just thinking like the score hit me in such a way that I remember thinking very clearly, I hope one day I can have the opportunity to try and create similar feelings for a new generation of players or something. And so that really did almost kind of set me on my path to doing what I'm doing now. So that was a very powerful experience. And I think Silent Hill 2 is another one of my all-time favorite scores. I just love the unique approach that he took to scoring like one of the most visceral horror games of all time, but he tried to capture the sadness and the melancholy and the emotion of what was actually quite a harrowing story underneath all of the visual terror that was going on. I found like trying to score that subtext was a really interesting direction to take, and not something that you hear or see very often. So I think that's definitely another one that I'll always point to when sort of talking about all-time favorite scores.
I have a question. So in the video games industry is a little unique. Also, I would say maybe a few other mediums, but pretty much what you're creating is for a game, and once you create it, it's part of that, but it also lives on YouTube and other things. So you kind of almost lose the rights to that music as soon as you create it. You know what I mean? As opposed to in the music industry, it's kind of yours to do what you want with from that point on. How do you feel about creating something that you obviously work so hard for, and then once it's out there, it's kind of no longer attached to you, you know?
Yeah, that's another really good question. I've never really thought about that before, but you're absolutely right. It ceases to become your thing as soon as that game gets published. Thousands of different people are going to play it and experiencing it in very different ways, and it's going to mean something slightly different to every single one of them. And normally, if you've kind of done quite an interactive score, every single one of them are going to hear and experience a slightly different musical journey from start to finish as well. So I guess it can be tough to let go of something that you've put that much of yourself into, but at the same time, that's why you're doing it. You're writing for other people, and so ideally try and create a really powerful, impactful experience for them. So that's ultimately kind of always the end game anyway. But yeah, it is interesting. You do quite often get some interesting feedback and emails after a project's released, and people reading things into the work which was never really intended by
Right.
just hearing different people's opinions and perspectives is always very interesting. And in sorry to keep harking back to Thomas Was Alone, but I just feel like there's so many direct case studies for things that you're asking there, because that was probably the most interactive score that I've done to date, to the extent that the game would literally kind of randomize an arrangement. It was quite procedural, so literally 100 people could play that game and they would hear 100 different pieces of music every time. And then for the soundtrack release, I kind of cobbled together what I considered to be the definitive versions of each of those kind of collection of loops and layers and so on and so forth, and I arranged them as I would have liked. If it was a film, this is how I would have written them rather than the interactive approach that we took. And I remember getting an email or someone saying, I really love the soundtrack, but it's missing the music from stage 4. I said, oh, no, that's on there. That's track number 6. It's this. And he was like, oh, really? Oh, it doesn't sound the same. I preferred how it sounded in game. So, okay, brilliant. So the computer generated a more pleasing arrangement of the music than I was able to do as the composer to that one particular person's ears, apparently. And I think that kind of stuff's pretty incredible, to be honest. So, it's cool.
Yeah. Right on.
Now, if Tommy Tellerico said, hey, I want you to tour with me doing the Video Games Live tour, would you do it? And which soundtracks that you've created would you bring on there?
Oh, hell yes, I'd do it. Hell yes. I'd hope that it would be as a guitarist on other people's music. Because I wouldn't like to have to play any of my stuff live, because I absolutely suck at piano.
So what if they asked you to go up there and play Limp Bizkit?
Oh man, I'll be there tomorrow. Yeah, I'll sack my projects off to do that.
Yeah,
Oh,
kind of look
wow.
like Fred Durst, by the way.
So, yeah, David, I got a story to tell you real quick. So I met Fred Durst in person backstage. And yeah, I used to intern for Kid Rock for Atlantic Records. I worked under what were they called? A&E or A&R guys. So I sent out like promos to record stores and radio stations at the time. And they used to get me backstage in turn because, obviously there was no pay for it if you're an intern. Yeah. So I went to one of Kid Rock's shows in Philadelphia, and Limp Bizkit was doing a show with him. And so I'm backstage, and my sister loved Fred Durst back then. She loved Limp Bizkit. So I'm going up there for an autograph, and he's like, oh, so you come here to see me? I'm like, no, I'm actually here for Kid Rock, but my sister loves you. So can I please get an autograph? And he just looked at me. He's like, here you go. He thought like I was one of those hardcore fans of his that bought like a VIP backstage pass. But he, like, all in all though, he seemed like a really cool guy to like some of his bandmates, because at the show he brought a truckload of like ATVs, and they were riding ATVs outside, like in the back of the venue, just messing around on ATVs. That's the type of guy he was.
I love it. Yeah, like those guys were proper rock stars, man. Like all of the family values era, like all of that kind of stuff. Like, it's such a cool time.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen it, but unfortunately, I was a bit too young back then.
All right, so we have another question from the chat. Stickfigure asks, any advice for someone trying to get their music on a video game?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very saturated marketplace at the moment, and I don't think there's ever been kind of more composers all vying for the same stuff at any point in history before. There's actually courses like specifically dedicated to scoring music for games, and that's crazy to me, because it wasn't that many years ago that I left university myself, and like that stuff just literally didn't exist back then. Otherwise I would have done it, so it's kind of crazy like how much demand there is for that kind of stuff currently. But at the same time, I don't think there's ever been a point in history when there's been this much content being made. You think about all of the platforms that currently exist, which just, if you go back even kind of 10 years previously, weren't a thing. The advent of mobile gaming, the advent of social gaming, not to mention with Steam becoming a more open platform, and really it's almost like a bit of a golden age. So it's simultaneously a good and a bad time to try and do it. But in terms of kind of practical advice, I would say, you like, first and foremost, your chops have to be, shit hot. Like, technology has come to such a point now that anyone can create, production worthy music for a few $100s investment, and you need to be able to make sure that what you're producing can at least live with the kind of best of what else is readily available. Otherwise, no one's going to really look at it. So you really do have to work very hard at kind of becoming a great musician and composer. Assuming that we can take that for granted and that you've already done all of that, then I'd say the next best thing that you can do is to learn business skills and entrepreneurship, because that tends to be the difference maker between really great musicians who kind of remain bedroom geniuses, and people who go on to make it are those that can effectively brand themselves and find a way to kind of stick out in a marketplace with thousands of people all vying to do the same thing. So yeah, kind of really like focusing, like learning business skills, marketing skills, how to effectively network. Put yourself in the same place as game makers are going to be, and filmmakers, if that's kind of the direction that you want to go in. Go to events, get to know people as friends, like not with an agenda, because I think that's quite off-putting if you just go up handing your business card out quite wantonly. Like that's rarely kind of an effective way to get work. But if you just go with kind of the intention of making friends and getting to know people, it's not an overnight kind of recipe for success. But months down the line, they're going to need music for something, and they're going to remember you. Like people want to work with people that they like and that they get on with. And if your stuff's really good as well, then it's really a matter of when rather than if it happens for you. But there's a huge amount of luck and timing involved, and the more places you can put yourself in and the more opportunities you can give yourself to meet fellow creatives and fellow industry folk, the more chance you're going to have. And if you are still in education, then just reach out to other departments as much as possible to do as much collaborative work as you can. Get in touch with the film department, get in touch with the games department if there is one, and make sure that you're kind of making relationships with all of the filmmakers and game developers of tomorrow. And and keep at it, I guess, is the last thing. Don't give up if no one hires you in your first few years. It may well be that you work kind of pro bono for a long time, but if you're good and you stick at it, you should get there eventually.
So it's kind of like I've said before, networking and being likable.
Yeah.
So and we've had these conversations before in the back, in the background where everybody's got their ideas, but like you just said, it's a lot of everything and luck too. It's not, you got to be at the right place. People got to think of you. So doing all that, it's very important. And
absolutely. Yeah, I think that probably goes for the majority of creative competitive industries as well. You can transplant that approach and advice to more or less anything, filmmaking, art, all of it.
So how did you get approached by AJ or anybody with the Battletoads team?
AJ was actually a friend from the band days. So we went on tour together. We didn't go on tour. I played a gig with AJ's band in Essex, which is the town where he's from, and we got on really well. And we were just chatting after the show, and he mentioned that he, in his day job, was a programmer at a UK studio called Jagex, who make RuneScape and Transformers MMO and all manner of other things, I'm sure. As soon as I found that out, because I was at university at the time, kind of studying, trying to do composition for games, I was like, oh, okay, let me buy you a beer. And we just went and kind of hung out and chatted. And he said, he'd keep an eye out for me. And if there was ever an opportunity to do some internship or work experience, he'd let me know. Well, I thought, great. And I didn't hear from him for months afterwards, so naturally just assumed nothing would come of it. But he actually left Jagex to go and work for a brand new startup company in London, and he called me up and he said, we don't have any work experience for you, but the lead designer on this new game that I'm working on is making his own indie game in his spare time as a hobby project, so there won't be any money in it, and it's not gonna make you rich and famous, but it would be a good foot in the door and a good chance to have a game on your resume. So I said yes, of course, and he introduced me to his designer, who was a guy called Mike Biffle, and then that hobby game that he was making was what ended up being Thomas Was Alone. And it sold over 3 million units. We got nominated for lots of awards, 3 BAFTAs. The music got nominated for a BAFTA. It put him in a position to make, he's still, making very successful games even today, and it all kind of came from that. So we got massively, massively fortunate, and it all came from having a beer in a dive bar after playing a gig to about 10 people. So there you go.
Yeah. You never know.
I was just gonna say that AJ is, out of all the people I've met so far inside the industry that is a programmer, he is one of the nicest, most down to earth guys, and even if he says something, he always keeps his word. He's just a really cool guy, and we're supposed to be doing some type of tabletop thing with him in the future, which is gonna be really cool. But I'm so glad to hear like that kind of story, because it just, I don't know, it makes me feel really good to know that, there's a lot of good people out there. It's a heartfelt story kind of for me.
No, definitely, man. And everything that you just said is so true. AJ is someone I consider to be one of my very good friends. He's always just been so down to earth and open and honest, and there's not loads of those type of characters in the industry, really. I think it just helps, both coming from the same place. We're both playing in bands. The scene that we're in was all about kind of supporting other people, like looking after your friends, they look after you, and so none of the kind of sort of selfish streak that I guess you almost need to blaze a path for yourself in such a competitive industry. But we both come from that direction, and it's so nice that we've both experienced enough success in our respective careers that it's been able to come full circle, and we both actually got to work together on something in exactly the right way. And that project actually got to be like a throwback to working with band music again. Like all of the musicians that we got on that were people that we knew from like back in the scene. We worked with who we consider to be the best producer that we couldn't afford to work with back in those days. It was a real nice project, and I actually had to sell my my guitar and amp when I first started composing, so that I could buy a secondhand iMac and like a 2-octave M Audio keyboard and a secondhand copy of Pro Tools LE, so that I could actually write the music for this indie game that I did, Thomas Was Alone. And then 8 years later, because of the way that composing had gone, I then got to go back and buy an even nicer guitar and an even nicer amp to kind of write the soundtrack for this. So it was like the investment finally paid off.
That's awesome. I actually want to go back now and play Thomas Was Alone, because I never played the game, but I've heard a lot of people talk about how great the music was in that game. Like a lot of people really felt that kind of emotional connection with that music.
Yeah, that's really nice of you to say, man. And it did seem to touch a lot of people, which was just hugely flattering for me after spending sort of years writing music that was probably heard, by dozens of people at best. To then work on something which reached an audience of that size was just beyond anything that I ever thought I would achieve. So very, very pleasant surprise.
Now, would you play Rock Band or would you play Guitar Hero?
Guitar Hero, man.
Really?
All day. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate what Rock Band trying to do more. I think you kind of get more. It's more of a kind of direct simulation of like what the actual
more accuracy. Yeah.
No, exactly that. But yeah, just in terms of arcade fun, like Guitar Hero, and track listing, Guitar Hero as well. Yeah.
Nice.
I got obsessed with that stuff, man. I played it way too much.
What's your favorite one?
Good question. Do you know, I know everyone will always say 3, but I actually probably have the fondest memories of 2.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I think that's probably the one that I played the most. Although I did spend like a horrendous amount of hours trying to do Dragon Force through the Fire and Flames on. On
that one.
The first time experiencing that song on the game after the credits, like
See, and that's the funny.
Yeah.
I always found it that it was inaccurate when it came to that. That Rock Band was a little bit more accurate, like you said, simulation. Because I always found that you're hitting notes that didn't exist.
Yeah, yeah, and also trying to. I actually think it's probably quite a skill to like arrange songs in an intuitive way for 5 notes. Like that must have actually been like pretty hard to do. So I think yeah, there's probably a lot of really cool stuff going on under the hood there. But there was one that actually let you plug your guitar into the game, and it would actually
Rocksmith.
Rocksmith.
yes, that's
I
it.
played that for hours and hours.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I actually bought a guitar for the game because I didn't know how to play the guitar. I just started learning guitar with that game.
Oh,
and
that's
that's the only
amazing.
time I played that.
So I actually taught you a real instrument.
Yeah, till I stopped playing. It was fun to play some music in there, like from Avenged Sevenfold.
Yeah, man.
Oh my god,
Beast in the Harlot.
yeah, I really love those.
Yeah,
songs.
Sinister Gates used to be one of my favorite guitarists when I started getting kind of more into when I started getting out of new metal and appreciating kind of actual metal a bit more. They were one of the bands that I got really massively into. But yeah, I was never good enough to do all of that crazy stuff. Still don't know how to sweep pick. So
How about John 5?
How about
John 5?
Oh, Marilyn. Yeah, I was never the biggest Marilyn Manson fan, to be honest. I've found him a little bit too industrial for my tastes at the time. But yeah, he's a great guitarist. Very unique style, which is cool. I used to like his signature. I think it was a Telecaster. They just like waxed the pickups out and put some EMGs in there and stuff. So it was that was pretty badass.
Yeah, because let's see, it was obviously Slash was one of my favorite, and then Zach Wilde, John 5 is now because he's with Rob Zombie, so it's like, you pick up different. We've talked about Wes earlier, so you pick up different guys at different stages in their life.
No, you totally do,
so
man. You're absolutely right.
It's awesome to see that, and then at the same time, Flamish is learning off of a video game how to play guitar too. You know what I mean? So it's. We're talking about fake guitars. He's on a real guitar.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of all this. We got together, and that's why it popped in my head. What do you think about Rock Band and Guitar Hero? Because I used to DJ, and I had all my equipment hooked up to the TV, and we would sit there and play as if it was a little mini concert. And the neighbor would stand.
Man.
Well, the beauty was the neighbor would stand outside, and we're like, oh no. We're too loud, so I go out there, apologetically, hey, are we too loud? He's like, no, I had to come all the way out to the street so I can hear you guys. Turn it up so I can go back out to my porch. So, it's awesome. Yeah. So it's funny how even a non-gamer can get into stuff like this, even when it comes to music, that everything's so universal and it all combines. And like you said before, without that game, if the game was muted, you don't feel nothing, so it's imagine doing all the stuff we're doing. So it's awesome to have people like you that get into it and they have such a diverse background. It's so cool to hear this and chat with you about it.
No, I really appreciate that, man. And you're absolutely right. I think it's great that people from different backgrounds can come and lend their voices to the scene, and it's why we have so many amazing eclectic game scores, because I think it is changing in film, but I think traditionally in film it was all like you had to be classically trained, you had to have come from a certain school, you had to have trained under a certain person before you really got the opportunity to break into it. And I'd have that door closed to me my entire life if that was the case with games. So it's pretty amazing that technology and attitudes have developed to the extent where people from completely different backgrounds with different musical educations or lack of can still come in and just let their creativity run wild. And I think that's how we get some of the most interesting results.
Okay. Also, what I want to add on to that Guitar Hero from earlier was that I'm actually love the old rock because of Guitar Hero. So I really learned a new style of music because of all that in the music industry. And I want to ask you something for the people that are starting out. Is this something that you would like to give to new people doing all this stuff like nowadays, that you want to give to them as an experienced composer?
Yeah, I mean, I try to. Like I said earlier, when we were talking about kind of favorite game scores and experiences which really kind of had quite a big impact on us and stuff, like that's definitely something that I strive to try to recreate for people when they listen to my music. I don't really ever have any interest in just writing kind of musical wallpaper. I always try to say something. I always try to create something which is really going to speak to people, and if they're invested in the game, a large I want the music to play a large part of that and to really help sell the experience to the fullest degree, like beyond the wildest dreams of the developer. So I really do my very best to kind of share that with today's generation of players and so on and so forth. How successful I am in achieving that is something I'll look back on in years to come and ponder, I'm sure. But that's always the goal, and it's something which I'm always going to be trying to do, and hopefully we'll continue to get better at.
Okay. I don't know if you have much time left.
If you want to, kind of wrap up and stuff, that's cool, man.
Okay. Clowns is at the moment not there. It was really nice having you, David, on the show. Where can people find you? Where can people find you on the media? On what games? Just give a general.
Well, thanks so much for having me, man. I really enjoyed chatting to you all. My all of my work's available on my Bandcamp and website, which is housedenmusic.com, and I do most of my kind of social interactions on Twitter as well. So feel free to give me a follow and chat over there at David J. Housden.
Right on.
Okay.
Nice.
So everybody follow this amazing composer. Check out the games he has created. It was awesome having you on, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, he's got a list on SoundCloud here for you guys to check out. A lot of all the songs that he's got there. So definitely check them out. It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Hopefully chat again. All the best.
We learned a lot from you. Thank you.
Thanks, David, for coming on, and everybody go ahead and give him a follow so you can see his next projects. I'm sure that some stuff in the works that we're gonna get to see, and it's gonna be awesome, man. And thanks again, David, for coming by. We really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Take care.
One more thing, David.
Oh.
I talked to AJ. I do the Breaking Bread with Dread, and when I go over there, finally, in the next couple of years, we will meet up. And I also want to extend the offer to you.
Oh, definitely, man. Yeah. If you're going to be over, give me a shout. Yeah, we'll go for a beer and some French fries.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right, guys. Take care. See ya.
All right. Thanks, David.
Okay, so Dreadpool, also thanks for being here, of course. And
not a problem.
Where can people find you? Tell them about your Breaking Bread with that.
Well, I figured I had to plug it real fast with him before he left. But yes, Breaking Bread with Dread is on anchor.fm/Dreadpool, all letters, all caps. You can find me on Twitter at Dreadpool. The O's are actually zeros. YouTube, Gamertag, Stadia, it's all letters, all caps. Every Wednesday night, you can find me on Gaming Beyond the Box. Beyond.
Not inside or around?
Nope. Not outside. Not through.
What about on the box?
No, just beyond. So we're so far beyond the inside or onside or on top or below. Anyway, Breakfast with Boom, Friday mornings at 10 a.m. And then obviously right here, Four Guys with Quarters, when we do these interviews And because it is the holidays, as a reminder, my DMs are open. So if anybody wants to chat about something, I may not know what to say, but at least you'll have an ear to listen to you. Thank you very much. You all have a happy holidays.
Thanks, Tread. And Mav, where can people find you, man?
So you can find me, Mav, here on Tuesdays. Also, you can find me on YouTube at Fun Speculation, at Twitter at Fun Speculation, Friday nights with the Xbox Ultimate Podcast. As always, this week we're going to keep it simple. It's going to be Christmas night. It's going to be interesting. It's just going to be me and my wife. We're going to have a nice, chill, fun night there, and we're just going to kind of hang out with you guys. We may come up with something to like do like an activity or something, it won't be a regular format, just to hang out for Christmas night and say thanks to everybody. So I look forward to that. And on starting on the 2nd of January will be a new podcast led by God's Geeks YouTube, and that is the Extraordinary Gaming Podcast. So you can check me out there as well. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Thanks for Pong Soul. The mistletoe may be involved, but maybe after the show. But yeah, thanks everybody in the chat for hanging out here and supporting what we do here at Four Guys with Quarters. Awesome to hang out with Flamish and Dread and you clowns. Sorry I was running late. This holiday traffic is a pain in my butt, but got here and thought it was a great interview. I thought he was awesome to have on. So good job with that.
Oh, definitely. I do have a question for you, Mav. Now
Yes,
you
sir.
say the mistletoe, that's going to be, are you going to wear it on the belt or put it up on the ceiling?
Hey, there'll be mistletoe in all the places.
Nice. Good comeback, man. Good
A little bit
comeback.
here, a little bit there, a little bit up, a little bit down.
And the elf stole Flemish's candy bowl.
No, it's here. It's here.
It disappeared.
The elf stole it, even though he brought it out.
Yeah.
I
Gone.
can delete the background, but I don't want to show off my couch and stuff.
His couch it looks very cozy.
I think
It's
is your house on fire, Flamish? I see a lot of flames in the background. Are you okay?
Well, I can tell you a little bit. Like this is my thing where you can.
He's gonna
find
fall
me,
over.
It's a black leather couch, okay? We
it's
know
like
what
over
it is.
here, so
We can hear it.
Oh, hey, babe. She's in the chat. Uh-oh. I might be in trouble.
Uh-oh. Okay, I got to ask, why is it no hashtag the wife? It should be the number one wife.
Wait, what?
Ooh, that's good.
The number one wife.
But
There's only
then
one
some
wife.
people might think Mav has multiple wives and he lives like in Oregon or something.
Why not? They think I do too.
Oh,
I've got
funny.
like multiple wives.
Hashtag Caitlyn the Queen.
Or I would be in Utah, right?
Oh yeah, Utah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Utah.
I'm sorry, Utah.
It's Utah.
Where'd he say?
Midway says he has 2? Question mark.
No, just one.
You
Just
can't
one,
count your
guys.
hands, Midway. No hands.
Maybe 3 wives. Michael Garvey. Oh wow, this is
All right,
getting
let's
out of
end the show before
Okay.
we get too far.
Yeah,
So
before
where you
Mav
can
gets in
find
trouble.
me-
Yeah, come
I
on,
will
guys.
tell you
Cut
where
it.
you can find me,
Cut it.
guys. Of course, Flemish. On top. Oh god.
Wait, hold on, Florence. Let me do
Yeah,
let me
what?
do the outro for you, and then you kick in. So Flamish, aka the Belgium sensation, aka the man with the largest candy bowl in all of podcasting in the world, who even made King David's eyes cry a little bit. Where can people find you?
Well, first of all, let me show you my my candy bowl because I want to show it off. That's my candy bowl. Getting a little bit.
That's a candy box.
What is
Candy
that?
box.
Pink, what is that pink thing in there?
Oh, so the pink thing has the artisanal Belgian candy in here. So it's actually a company in Belgium that makes it like it was back in the day. It looks like reddish candy, but it tastes very differently. And that's hell expensive, but especially made candy. So
They taste
Wow.
green.
no, it tastes nothing like what it's supposed to be. I will tell you that. It's a special flavor. I cannot read it out. It's not just strawberry. It looks like strawberry. It's hard candy, but it's very different from the normal candy, I would say, because it's made like the old recipe and stuff, like it was back in the day, some odd 50 years ago or something. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, of course, my Candy Bowl and me you can find on my Flemish experience this Sunday, like every Sunday 4 p.m. on my YouTube channel called Flemish. Then we also have the interviews here for GQ, for Guys with Quarters, for GQ TV, where I'll be on as well with clowns, doing news shows, interviews, reviews, stuff like that. And then, of course, don't forget RetroRenegades at Tuesday, 7 p.m. EST. But that's going on a break for now. And after this week, I'm going on a break as well. After next Friday, probably. So yeah, guys, it was great here, of course, Clowns. Thanks for having me as your co-host, and yeah, see you all next time.
Well, yeah, I want to shout out to everybody in the chat and everybody that's listening later, no matter what country you're in. While Flamish is on vacation, everybody should go subscribe to him so that he can get his channel monetized. Also, go subscribe to Mav so he can get his channel monetized too. That would be really cool. So everybody should do that. And check out Breaking Bread with Dread. If you are sitting alone on New Year's or Christmas Eve, after you watch Mav's show on Christmas, you can listen to some Breaking Bread with Dread, and you'll feel like that you're actually sitting amongst friends, chatting and talking, and you can bring out your whatever you're eating for the holidays, your ham, your turkey, your chicken, your Arby's roast beef, whatever it is. And you could just sit there and listen to Breaking Bread with Dread and feel like that you're amongst friends. So I want to give that a big shout out there. You could look at that up on Anchor and check out all its feeds. And then you can find me at Italian Clowns on all social media for GWQ Podcast on Twitter. And actually, I just want everybody to know in the chat, we actually got confirmations from 2 more musical composers that are coming on. Jared Farber, who actually did the musical score for Teen Titans Go the movie, as well as Nickelodeon, other projects as told by Ginger. And we also are going to get Ben Nichols on, who did A Falconeer and several other games for musical composition. So those are probably going to be the 2 closest ones after the new year that we're going to get scheduled on here. And then Greg from White Paper Games, and we got 2 more devs from Delilah Studios coming on. And I got to go through my emails. There's probably a lot more. But I want to thank everybody for coming out to the chat. Everybody I saw, I really appreciate the support that you guys come and show this channel, and you show the panel members on this channel on their podcasts. It's a really amazing community, and it wouldn't be a community without all of you who listen to us, and that is the truth. So happy holidays from all of us at 4 Guys with Quarters, and I hope everyone has an awesome new year, no matter what you celebrate. Just have fun gaming, have fun talking to your friends, have fun doing whatever you like to do, and don't worry about what anybody says about your hobbies. Just do what's fun for you. That's all I got to say, and I'm out of here. And until next time, thanks, guys.
Ow.
Ho ho ho! Bye bye bye.
Ho 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 ho.